Howdy folks, it's Meandering Mike in the Man Cave of Madness, and we are exploring the long-awaited War and Peace 7th edition. Mark McLaughlin's classic, first came out in, I believe, 1980 by Avalon Hill. Had various editions, eventually got published by One Small Step, which I believe did the 5th and 6th editions, and now Avalon Digital. This is not a digital game, this is a board game, but Avalon Digital is the company releasing the 7th edition of War and Peace. All right, let's go ahead and get the shrink off. And the shrink is off. Let's take a look at the back of the box first, since now that glare is gone. Now I'm going to sort of zoom down to this corner here. I think, well, let's zoom all the way in for now and look at the very corner. So, high complexity, solitaire suitability, coming in at medium, almost looks like the bottom of medium. All right, now, there should be scenarios geared towards learning where it won't be high complexity. The game overall definitely is high complexity. All right, and again, some of the scenarios will be more suitable than to solitaire than some others. Okay, overall 2 to 5 players, so not designed for any solitaire, but as often experienced war gamers often can play solo by playing each side against themselves. It's the degree of how much hidden information there are, or potentially diplomacy that's not controlled by, say, charts and tables and such. That makes it harder to play solo. 2+ hours, yes, definitely plus if you're playing some of the larger scenarios or a campaign game. Age 14 plus. Okay, we're gonna come up here to look at the components, and I think we'll be able to see the whole thing at once there. Yeah. Okay, large mounted map board coming in 2 sections. So it's 2 different 22 by 34 sections. So this is definitely different than the way the old Avalon Hill game had it, where there was multiple long strip boards. I can't remember if there was 3 or 4 total or whatnot. 10 mounted and die-cut counter sheets. Rulebook, fully updated and illustrated. Scenario book, grand campaign book. Operational methods booklet. 54 playing cards, 4 events. 1 Cards and Revolution expansion booklet. 1 3-panel chart and tables folder. A force pool display, 3 leader displays, and some dice. All right, and so it's saying that Mark McLaughlin is the main game designer, but also with John Gant. All right, now Philippe Feibau, he is the, I'm pointing down here, which you can't see, the principal of Avalon Digital. He is a board game designer that turned towards digital implementation of board games, like on Steam, etc. Okay, let's quickly look over here at another spot on the back, and then we're going to get inside soon here. But there's an example of some of the counters. Leader, Napoleon, obviously, an infantry unit. They're using silhouettes to show what we have. Cavalry, fleets. They don't show an example of artillery, which would be always nice to see. The triumvirate of force, the infantry, cavalry, and artillery on land. This looks like a I'm not going to scroll down because we're looking at the part here. Transport ships versus ship of the line. All right, that's enough there. We're not going to look at the textual stuff, the description, because this is Napoleon, War and Peace. This is like a period from Napoleon's early through late. It's going to cover, all the way the various wars against Austria and Prussia and Russia and coalition and that coalition and all the way up to Waterloo, etc. So let's get inside the box. And we are now back in the box. I would say this is very heavy. Between the mounted maps and the 10 counter sheets and cards and so many booklets, this is a heavy beast. All right, now I'm going to set aside most of the paper stuff. We're going to go after the counters and the maps first, and we're going to look at cards, and then we'll go back and look at some of it. So here's this operational methods booklet. It's only, a half full. So it's really one sheet of paper, two sides folded up. So that's a little tiny thing. All right, here is that foldy trifold, bunch of charts, tables, etc. I'm going to set that on the other side. All right. This is the force pool display. And they said there was 3 leaders displayed. You have the French Alliance leader, the French Allies leader, and the Allies leader. So you got the French Alliance, which is the French themselves, but I guess some other so that'll be interesting. We've got all these French allies that are joining at particular time, various German states and Italian states, and at some point, the Spanish and etc. But they don't call it the French display; they call it the French Alliance leader. So that's going to include French states that are heavily integrated into the empire, I'm going to say. So we'll try to look at that later. All right. So this is Grand Campaign Scenario. Okay, it's got a table of contents here up to page 26. I'm going to guess the whole thing's maybe 32 pages. Nope. So 27 there, 28 to the backside. So it's 28 total pages, including the covers. This feels about the same as the standard game scenarios. Again, we will look at these to some extent. This is going to be an exploration video, so it's going to be more than just an unboxing. No, this is actually 23, 24. So this is actually a little bit shorter. Baggies, a whole bunch of baggies. Well, if you've got 10 counter sheets, you're going to need trays. Now, one advantage here, okay, I'm starting to see the counters, but rules of play, a soul for war and peace, optional random event cards. All right, so this is that details. Well, no, it's up to, there's also expansion game scenarios. Okay, so here's all those random event cards with explanations. But then there's expansion game scenarios. All right. And that is 24 pages. And the actual rules of play, which, all right, the other one was the standard game scenarios. Okay, so here's the rules of play. This is probably also going to be 24. See it there? No, it's only 20 pages, so 19 to here. So 20 pages of rules. The back is blank. The rules of the table of contents is here. Okay, so 20, really 19 pages. Now, here are all those counters. They're in shrink. We'll get them out of the shrink in a minute. But notice how they're punched. They're pre-rounded corners. They're going to have very, very tiny side nibs, though. But hopefully they'll be practically not visible or not even feeling to the touch. We'll have to see when they punch out. But look how much white space there is all around these. So a lot of the weight of this is the fact that they didn't pack the counters in as tight as they could have. But it also means with this many counter sheets, with not a huge density of the counters, that you're going to be able to fit in a couple trays in there once these are gone, and you'll have plenty of room to fit the trays. So that aspect is very nice. So, most people don't want to use baggies. All right, and here is the map. It's in shrink. Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna get that out of there a second. I'll be right back. Okay, there's 2 die 6. It didn't send the back coming in, it just said dice, but there's 2 pair of dice. Cards. Big map. In shrink. And those counters. So let's get those out of shrink. And here are the counters. Now, looking through the camera, it looks a little yellow. If I tilt it up here, you can see that these are white. So these ought to be the Austrians. All right, okay, that's not gonna fall over. Okay, I'm gonna bring this closer and I'm gonna zoom in. All right. So very simple. We got a strength. So each strength point, and they can stack a certain amount, and you can see we can have quite a few, quite big stacks, and that's just an I for infantry. The reason they don't rely on the silhouette alone is, see that L? That's the Landwehr. That's the militia. Not every nation has those, I don't think, but those that do. Now, there's cavalry with a C. I'm not sure what those are. PM. There's PM for cavalry. Could that stand for something like private mercenaries or something? I don't know. We'll find that out eventually. All right. Now, one thing I wanted to look at, it is a white core. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're necessarily super well punched through. The danger here might be you might have some tearing on the back if these are not adequately punched through. So I'm not going to experiment with that now, but if I do find a problem with these when I get to punching it, I'll report on that. So more of the Austrians, including their leaders, Charles, Schwarzenberg, etc. All right. So then we have French gentlemen, more infantry. The French have guards infantry. They're elite. No, these just say P. So not PM, but P. So P with a lowercase m and just a P. We'll have to find out what those mean. All right. More French, including ships. Here's some infantry with a letter above them. B, D's. Okay, so these are probably something like, people that joined at given time, Belgians and Danes, and there's like Hessians, and or Hanover. There's, like the Hanovers one time were with the French, and one time with the Brits, and you have Nassau, Netherlands, Poland. So there's going to be a lot of client states. So figuring those out obviously will be a trip to somewhere in the rule book. Hopefully there'll be a page that explains all those. All right. It's a leader with a stripe. Jerome and A, these are the only leaders that have a big stripe like this. Bonaparte. That must be Jerome or Joseph, or because Napoleon is there. But at various times, multiple brothers of Napoleon served in various capacities. Now, these orange units, did they really make the Brits orange? Are those orange Brits? I hope not. We'll have to find out. Yeah. If you look close there, you see the British flag. So, not saying I'm happy with that choice of color. I can get used to it, but yeah, no. All right. At that size, I am not recognizing that flag. I am not 100% familiar with all the various flags during the Napoleonic eras. I'm guessing this is Sweden. This yellow and blue cross thing. But again, I could be easily wrong. And I'm going to guess that the yellow are the Spaniards. Were they a white with red diagonal cross? I do not know. Oh, interesting. These would be the Turks. IG. I'm guessing some kind of infantry garrison. It's white though, so Austrian. Did the Austrians have some kind of imperial guard? They quite easily could have had some guard units. Well, but here's a white one that's GI, guard infantry. All sorts of things you got to figure out here. Battle markers. There's 1 to 8 battle. So like marking the hexes where there's going to be battles. Demoralizations, trenches, fortifications, keeping track of the number of turns besieged. Wow, would there really be that many besieged places? Did you need that many? That would be quite a lot of sieging going on. All right. Wow, look at those, so bright. Unsupplied. Now these must be some kind of control markers. England. Okay, Prussia is that color gray. That was Spain. Yeah, the white's the Austria, Turkey. So Prussia, and then Russia is that. So this is kind of a greenish gray. I'm used to seeing Russians often being depicted as green in like the earlier versions of War and Peace. Okay. So we did not stop and look at all the counters, and we have questions, but that's probably enough for now. So let me open up the map. Now we've taken the map out of shrink, but before we start to furl these open, unfold in a mounted sense, let's go ahead and look at the cards first, because the map just sort of takes over the whole table. So let's look here, see what we've got. I'll zoom in a little bit as we need to. Get those dice out of the way. It's a little bit busy right here between the artwork and the title with a black and white outline. Even though this kind of dark, especially here on this side, this isn't too difficult to read. This shouldn't have been so dark here. These are relatively thick cards. That's kind of nice, but it's going to be a little bit easier to read. I mean, it's not too bad, but yeah, that should be a little less dark. And I don't know if this artwork was a little smaller or something, or it wasn't. It's okay, but I'd like to have the title be a little clearer. But Irish Revolt. So interestingly, there is standard card symbols. So to what degree you use the cards, you know, do you play rummy? Do you form up some suits, some runs? Do you meld? I don't know. But there's both events and standard card values. Marriage of State, Croatian Revolt, Satellite Conscription. Place one satellite infantry strength point in each of up to 3 French satellite production centers, but not those occupied by anti-French or neutral units. They have to be still in your control. So we're not going to look at all of these, of course. Storms. Conscription. Okay. I'll just sort of thumb through the rest of the clubs real quick. You can read those. If you can read those, you should be able to. Tilsit Treaty. The American War. Balkan War. Turkish War. All right. So that was ace through king of the clubs. Let's go through, and there's diamonds, hearts, spades, jokers. May be played to nullify any empire or common card has been played by a member of the opposite side. May also be used to lift the fog of war in 1 hex. Interesting. Interesting. So you can use them for anti-card play, but you also get some info. What's in that? Is that a huge stack, or is that just you faking me out? So that's kind of interesting. All right. So again, I'm not Bernadotte. Becomes King of Sweden. Look at the manual. Promote a leader. Hungarian insurrection. Prussian reserves. Increased production. Satellite defection. And I'll just go through the Spanish War. Ooh, martial defection. Someone defects. Check the manual for details. Royalist uprising. Skirmishers front. Modifies the combat die roll when an opponent plays a combat die roll modifier, and you can ignore that card. Nope. Damn good ground. I believe that's the phrase that Wellington used at Waterloo. Well, they weren't at Waterloo; they were south of Waterloo. But the battlefield that has become known as the Battle of Waterloo. Masked Grenadiers, Cuirassa's charge, humbugged. I'm gonna go through there quickly. You're incapacitated. Call up the next class. Yeah, it's just recruiting more troops. All right, and the last set of the cards: siege guns, defenses breach, supply trains, depots, wagon. Oh, this is all so far very supply oriented. So there's maybe themes within the suits. March to the sound of the guns. So supply, defenses, depots, pontoon trains. So maneuverability, cavalry raid. That's We might be hitting supplies. Attrition roll. Broken bridges, blocked roads, a grand redoubt. Hold the line. Rally to the colors. So it's a mix of stuff. But this is, quite a bit of the hearts were kind of supply theme, but not exactly. So it's not purely this are just in this suit and this are just in that suit. So that was the cards. All right. So of course I will be putting those into plasti bands. No, I'm not sponsored by the people who make plasti bands. I just love plasti bands. They're the solution. Don't use rubber bands. Just say no. No rubber bands. No rubber bands ever. All right, so I'm going to open the map off camera so I don't just fiddle around and knock things around. So back in a sec. All right, so this is going to be a little odd because the two maps do not fold in and out the same place. So this is the western half. Here's Spain. All right. France. Belgium, which at times is part of France. So the French frontier at certain times includes all this part of the Rhineland at some times and other times not. Westphalia, Hesse, etc. England. Now, so this part here has tracks. There's the Sweden box, a combat box, production. It's hard to read. It's a little, not enough contrast there. If you get close, you can see a turn record month track, turn record year track, foreign wars. Boy, I can't even read that from your to typhus display. Yeah, typhus display. Something current weather report. All right. Alliance display, naval economic warfare. Okay. So, so this is what's happening. See, this folds in here, but it's the bottom third that folds in this way. And so this, folds that way. So I couldn't do the two side by side the same way. So for right now, we can see this part butted up next to it. So the boot of Italy. And down here, we have a separated Eastern Mediterranean display. Because, they actually have Sicily and Malta here. This is pretty good. So all the way from Gibraltar over. But we don't have on here Crete or Rhodes, Corfu, etc. But then here's the Cape Horn, the Americas, the West Indies, etc. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm gonna pull this map section down, let it lie flat. All right. And so it's not butted against there properly, but now we can look at this part here. Okay, so Austria and Russia, and so obviously down that way are the Turks. They have a box, okay, for the Ottomans. All right. So up there in the red, that's Moskva, Königsberg. All right. So the Grand Duchy of Warsaw at times is part of France, controlled by Prussia at times, made independent by Napoleon at some point. But there's sort of the border with Russia, the great 1812 adventure right there, folks. Sweden. So it's interesting they actually managed to keep, you know, the big chunk of Sweden there. Even though, to my knowledge, there wasn't fighting in Sweden during the Napoleonic period. I may be wrong. If you know about actual incursions onto Swedish soil during the Napoleonic era, let me know. All right, so that's the map. So I'm going to fold this back up and we're going to grab some rulebooks and stuff. So this is going a bit long, but of course this is a Meandering Mike exploration, not your uncle's standard unboxing, but my lengthy meandering explorations. Now we're not going to look at all this stuff here. We're going to glance through it again. So again, this is a short operational methods. It says using standard game rules, if possible, perform the same actions Napoleon himself undertook during his campaign. Shift, strategy of central position, maneuver around and behind the enemy. So they're basically talking certain tactics and how within the game, tactics and operational moves. So grand tactical maneuver and sort of how you capture certain aspects of Napoleonic flavor of the time. All right. Rules of play. So as we said, this was 20 pages, right? Yeah, that's 20. Oh, just a picture there. So blank back. So it's actually 18 pages, including this half page of table of contents. Okay, these, like you can see, there's kind of glossy, relatively fair bit of glare. You can get it at an angle where there's not two columns, plenty of gutter. So that's a nice layout. And even though there's a stylized font here for across the top, it's still readable, but all the actual fonts within. Now they do look like they have a lot of italics here for this example. I don't particularly like that. They do have it in a brown color, which is fine. I don't know if they really needed to put that in italics, but they did. It's not horrible, but I would prefer it not to be. I mean, something like this note in italics, that's fine. But when you have relatively long examples, it's easier on these old eyes to read non-italics. But I'm not going to fault them too much. That's a minor nitpick. Yeah, that is a nitpick. Those who like to accuse me of nitpickery, I will own up to some aspects. But there's reasons, man. It's not really nitpickery if there's reasons. All right. I'm stating my preference, man. All right. Game equipment. Playing pieces, and again, explaining all that stuff. Now, I wanted to see what all those letter symbols are. Are they gonna, yep, here we go. Holland, Portugal, etc. King's German Legion, KGL, French Satellite Powers, Bavaria, Denmark, Dalmatia. DA is Dalmatia. Not Denmark. D was Denmark. Holland, Italy, Naples, PT, Portugal, PO, Poland. Now we saw P and a PM. Aha. PM, Piedmont. And P by itself, I'm not seeing it here. It wasn't a French guy, wasn't it? We have PT for Portugal, PO for Poland. I thought there was just a plain old P. Well, I'm not going to dwell on it. I thought I saw it. Maybe I misremembered, but PM is Piedmont. There we go. But yeah, I'm certain I saw just a P by itself. But oh well. Alliances, reinforcements, replacements, ground movement. With a big example about force marching. Oh, no. Here's force marching. Is this not force marching? says force marching. So there's, the idea is they actually start over here. An example of force marching, or part of this force marching, but the section on force marching is over here on this page. Overruns, supplies. Yeah, that's one of the things in this game is you know, you can't just leave little tiny ones all over the place and say, I'm going to totally stop these, you know, the big stacks. You gotta choose to defend in a sensible manner according to the period, and it doesn't make sense to just leave a bunch of ones all over the place as little speed bumps, because literally they're going to get overrun. Combat resolution. Okay, lots of examples. That's always good. Withdraw and retreat and advance after combat. Leader casualties, always a bummer. Leader casualties. Ugh. Dread those rolls, man. Fortresses and sieges. I don't remember how the siege in the older version. I played the 1980 version a fair bit, but not super lot. And I do not remember how the sieges worked. I like a game where sieges are sensible, where it makes sense to try to starve them out for a while, but you know, maybe you weaken them and you assault, or you know, ones where they just can't hold out forever and ever, or if it's too risky to assault. So I like it where there's a nice balance between siege and assault. Entrenchments. Maneuver sur les derrières. Something about rear guard, I guess. You tell me, is that a rear guard action? Maneuvers to the rear of opposing forces. So does that mean outflanking? Cavalry charge. French Imperial Guard. Oh yeah, there's that one what we saw. Was it? See, they had GI in it for guard infantry, but it was the Austrian IG label, is that their Imperial Guard and not. We saw GI also. I don't know. Russian patriotism, demoralized combat, fog of war, optional rules. All right, center game scenarios, grand campaign scenarios. So the fact that there's this much on that was one of the things before, is like. The campaign didn't really work in the original one. It was kind of like tacked on at the end, and the scenarios were relatively well developed, but not the campaign. And different people sort of made their own different rules for the campaign. So I'm hoping that this has been nailed down and refined, and that'll be interesting to see. Okay, I'm going to save the scenarios for a little bit. We'll come back to that. So optional random event cards for scenarios and campaign games. Optional. Personally, especially in a campaign game, I don't think the random event should be optional. I could see maybe wanting to do that in a scenario, especially if you're doing a scenario for like a tournament purpose, where you want like everyone to have the same sort of standing and not wildly weird things going on with random events. Clubs okay, interesting. Clubs are pro-French. Spades are anti-French. Okay, what about the red cards? Common cards. So those, the hearts and diamonds are listed as common cards. So I do not know if that means does anyone draw from the deck? And like, you know, or the anti-French cards, like is there a deck of anti-French cards, and the person can draw either from the red commons or that anti-French, and the French can draw from the one pro-French or from the common, or what, I don't know. And I'm not going to look it up now. We're not going to explore that deep. All right, so this expansion game scenario, we've got 1792, 1792 to 1795, 1796, 97. So I believe the original one started in, I don't know, remember if it was as early, did it have as early as 1800 originally, or see, I don't remember if there was the first Italian campaign, the original. I mean, it's in the standard scenarios now. I do not remember. Or if they started like 1800 Marengo or something. Do not remember. But there's extra campaigns here. And you've got Spanish. The whole Spanish issue. All right. So we're going to look at this a little more. Do they have... No, they don't have maps showing like the areas that are controlled, like set up lines, things like that. So you're going to also have to figure it out from the text. It's going to tell you, where, how much, etc. I like seeing a little overview map picture for each scenario. That would have been nice to have, but it is not here. All right. Okay, so this was the leader display. So we got the Brits, got the Austrians, we got the Prussians, we've got the Russians, we've got either the Spanish or the Portuguese. I mean, Spain ebbed and flowed, and the French, Spain was a French ally. They were fighting, but were the Spanish ever allied with the Brits? I don't know. So we got the Turks here, and these would be the Portuguese. But I don't know if you know, was the Spanish ever considered a ally of the Brits, or just at the time when the Spanish, the friend of enemy of my enemy is my friend. I don't know. Okay. If we look at, are these the same names? This will tell us. Yes. So that is the Spanish that can change sides. We've got the same dudes on both sides. All right. Alrighty, and we this. So we've looked at that pretty much before. But, all right. Force pool, small font. How many strength points of which type comes in at which year? List the production cities. Spain. So here, Western minor states. So they don't have any of their own leaders. They can have, here, 3P. So the Portuguese had a plain old P. France. Guard, cavalry, guard, infantry. Guard, infantry, 2P. So we still need to figure out what, okay, but this is a unit type, not a nationality. So the PM was Piedmont, but the P is something else. Could it be partisans? Yes, if invaded. If France is invaded, 2P. So these are partisans. Spain, yes, lots of partisans. Just a few partisans. So P is partisans. All right, mystery solved. We found it. We stumbled upon it in our meandering course. We're almost done, guys. We're almost there. So here is the train effects chart, and they've done it right. The symbol, the name of the feature, the movement point cost, any notes, the effects, all in one place. All in one place. All right. Now, this is worth photocopying. Okay. This one here, there's only one of these included in here. I would photocopy that. I will photocopy that. Because I do not remember seeing that on the map. So that's something to, yeah, and you know, yeah, there should have been 2 of these, at least. It would be nice to have 2 of these. If you've got all the force march tables, the tactical matrix, the combat loss chart, you know, all your goodies, expanded sequence of play, campaign, combat, optional grand campaign combat results table. Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna say they should have had 2 of these. That would have been the nice thing to do for the customer. And many publishers will do that. They'll have, you know, an identical player aid card for each player. And sometimes they have customized one that has, you know, the general charts that are true for both, and then some customized stuff. But this would be nice to have another one. Wonder if we can pester them in somehow. Will you sell me one cheap? All right, you just photocopy it. Now, you really would have been nice to have this. Two minutes in one. All right, folks. That was Meandering Mike in the Man Cave of Madness attrition table. That's one of the things about Napoleonic warfare. You're traveling around, you're having to forage, you're going to get places to fight. And one of the important things for Napoleonic, doctrine, their Napoleon's dictum is that you divide to survive and you unite to fight. They were especially good at spreading out, foraging on the march, and then in time assembling back together and getting that, mass and hitting the enemy quick and fast and being able to outmaneuver their folks due to their mobility, partly, their foraging strategy. And around this time, technologically, there was the invention of, the tinned can. The canned food was actually part of that aspect. All right, folks, Meandering Mike, Man Cave of Madness. I'm going to put the old box lid back up here. I had to take it off to get the room for all those big old maps. But so we can part ways looking here at good old War and Peace, 7th edition from Avalon Digital. Mark McLaughlin. All right, in the big size of glory. So you've got these huge 2 big mounted maps, but not in the typical smaller format of most war games. They went like I don't know if that's a 12 by 12 or almost a 13 by 13 inch box, but making sure everything fit in there. Like I did mention, there should be enough room there after punching all those counters that you could have some trays in there. It should all fit back with your mounted maps and some trays and all that stuff. So looking good. So overall, I'm going to say nice looking product, great maps, decent looking counters. I'm a little worried about that back of those counters, that maybe they weren't punched through quite sharp and deep enough. Let's hope those do not tear it all. I would have liked to have another copy of that 3-part, charts and table one. That would have been the nice thing. Besides that, everything else, small nitpick. So, and in a way, that's a luxury. Yeah, but it's a nice luxury to have 2 of these at least. Obviously you don't need 5 if you're playing with 5 players, but you really nice to have 1 per side. So. All right, folks, Meandering Mike, Man Cave of Madness. This has been a very long, meandering exploration of War and Peace. And so I'm going to say to all you out there in these times, let there be peace. We don't want political violence. We don't want physical violence. We want to play our games. We want to enjoy each other's company. And remember, take care of your games, and they will take care of you. Ciao, y'all.